So session 6 of faith. This time I'm going to look at the understanding that brought about the Reformation. Luther was reading the book of Romans and he read this verse. This is Romans 3:21. Righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. And then in verse 28, for we maintain that a person is justified by faith apart from observing the law. Now, to understand what's going on, we need to clarify what it means by righteousness. Righteousness means being in right relationship with God. It isn't a description of how law-abiding we are. We hear the word justification. We're justified by faith. And that means the same thing. To be justified is to be put in right relationship with God. So how does faith put us in right relationship with God? And why was this a different way of thinking from the church at the time? In the view of the church at the time, the righteousness of God was poured into a person's soul at baptism. And this is just a pure act of grace of God. And this grace would operate in their lives, and if they cooperate with it, then they become more and more righteous until the point where God can declare them as righteous. It comes through the fact that they use the Latin version of the Bible. And the word there is justificare, which means to make just. So if a person who's been baptised committed what they call a mortal sin, this would kill the grace in their soul. So they might still have faith, but they wouldn't be in a state of being justified. And they could only be restored through the sacrament of penance. And so a person's ability to be right with God depended on the sacraments, and it depended on their work of becoming justified or being made righteous. Now Luther saw this differently. He saw we are justified, we are made right with God purely through Jesus. Jesus lived a life that was completely obedient to the law. Even his baptism was an act of obedience. So Jesus achieved perfect righteousness with his life. But God imputed to him the sin of all humanity, and he died for that. So what happened here was an exchange. What was in our account, death, was exchanged for what was in Jesus' account, life. Jesus gave us his righteousness, his relationship with the Father. He took our death, our separation from the Father. It's the righteousness of Jesus that God imputes to all who believe. How we achieve this is only by putting our complete trust in Jesus. God gives us a righteousness which is completely outside of ourselves. It's nothing to do with what we earn or achieve. We're not made righteous by our inner virtues, but God reckons us as righteous. And that's what the Greek word implies, and of course it was originally written in Greek. God calls us justified, even when our lives are far from perfect. So it's purely a gift of God, and it's a gift that we can only receive through faith. True faith will produce the fruit of righteousness as we grow closer to Jesus.